News Dex has confirmed that former Kaduna State Governor and founding member of the All Progressive Congress, Nasiru El-Rufai, has dumped the ruling party for the Social Democratic Party. The prominent politician, who has been having a silent battle with President Tinubu, cited a growing misalignment between his personal values and the current direction of the APC as the primary reason for his decision. El-Rufai disclosed this in a press statement released on his X handle, where he expressed his disappointment with the APC's leadership, accusing the party of straying from the progressive ideals of its founding members. Meanwhile, the supposed peace meeting conveyed by the governor of Rivers State, Sir Siminalayi Fubara, could not be held on Monday as scheduled. This is following the refusal of the lawmakers invited for the meeting to show up. Recall the governor had, in a letter signed by the Secretary to the State Government, Dr. Tamidana Gogo, invited the Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Honorable Martins Amowelu, and the other 26 lawmakers for a peace meeting in Government House on Monday. Dana Gogo, in the letter dated 7th March, said the invitation came after the governor received certified true copy of the Supreme Court judgment on the political crisis in the state. At the top of the agenda of the earlier scheduled meeting was the presentation of the 2025 budget to the Assembly, payment of allowances of lawmakers, allocation of a sitting venue for the Assembly, and others. However, it was gathered that the meeting was to hold 10 a.m. at Government House, Port Harcourt, could not be held because lawmakers did not show up. Although it was earlier gathered that the lawmakers had turned down the invitation from the government, noting that it was not properly handled and only posted on social media platforms. A group under the umbrella of Rivers Ijaw People's Congress, RIPCO, has cautioned the Ijaw National Congress against inciting violence in response to the Supreme Court's verdict on the Rivers State political crisis. Speaking at a press briefing at the weekend in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, the group urged all stakeholders to adhere to the rule of law, emphasizing that the apex court's decision is final and legally binding. We have the details.
The Rivers Ijaw Congress says the recent judgment delivered by the court on the Rivers State political crisis was not based on ethnic considerations. Rather, it was in strict compliance with the Constitution and the rule of law. RIPCO, in a press briefing in Port Harcourt, called on well-meaning Nigerians to disregard the statement credited to the current president, Ijaw National Congress, Professor Benjamin Okoba, as INC does not speak for all Rivers Ijaw people.
The general public is invited to know that Professor Benjamin Okoba and his associates, who are threatening with hail and brimstone in Rivers State, do not speak for all Rivers Ijaw people, as there is no other formidable Ijaw group beside the Rivers Ijaw People's Congress. Therefore, the public is advised to disregard these misguided and provocative remarks and comments from them. As a responsible and law-abiding organization, the Rivers Ijaw People's Congress stands firm in supporting the Supreme Court's judgment. We believe that this judgment is a critical step towards bringing stability, peace, and justice to Rivers State. We commend the Supreme Court for its wisdom in resolving this matter, and we encourage all citizens to accept the judgment and work together for the betterment of Rivers State.
The leaders of the Rivers Ijaw Congress implored the INC president to rather advise Governor Siminalayi Fubara to implement the Supreme Court's judgment rather than disrupt the peace of Rivers State.
In the spirit of peace and stability, we, members of the Rivers Ijaw People Congress, and fellow Ijaw brothers with Professor Benjamin Okoba, do implore him and his co-travelers to advise His Excellency Governor Sim Fubara to promptly implement the Supreme Court judgment. Only through the full execution of the court's decision can peace and order be restored in Rivers State. The people of Rivers State deserve nothing less than the swift and transparent implementation of the rule of law.
Iko congratulated the Speaker and 26 members of the Rivers House of Assembly for their unwavering dedication to upholding the law and promoting peace in the state.
Reactions have continued to throw a controversial ruling by the Supreme Court of Nigeria, which upheld the death sentence of Sunday Jackson, a farmer who has been convicted of killing a Fulani herdsman in an act of self-defense. The decision comes 10 years after Jackson was first imprisoned, sparking outrage over what legal experts describe as a clear miscarriage of justice. Jackson, a farmer who was violently attacked with a knife by the deceased Fulani herdsman. Despite sustaining injuries, Jackson managed to overpower his attacker, wresting the weapon from him and using it in self-defense. The report. The trial court led by Justice Fatima Ahmed Tafida ruled that Jackson should have fled the scene instead of using the knife against his attacker. However, many argue that this ruling ignores the context of self-defense and the immediacy of the threat Jackson faced. Some right lawyers have pointed out that the trial was marred by irregularities, including a 167-day delay between the final addresses and the delivery of judgment, which exceeds the constitutional mandated 90 days. The Supreme Court's decision has sparked widespread outrage, with many calling it a miscarriage of justice. Supporters of Jackson have launched a campaign urging Governor Ahmadu Fintiri of Adamawa State to grant a pardon and spare Jackson's life. The case has also reignited conversations about self-defense laws in Nigeria, particularly in rural areas where clashes between farmers and herdsmen are common. Critics argue that the ruling fails to account for the complexity of self-defense and the need for citizens to protect themselves against violent attackers. As the court seeks for Sunday Jackson, his fate remains uncertain, but the call for compassion and justice grows louder by the day.
And this is a sad day, Charles, for human rights in Nigeria. Sunday Jackson, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm a human rights advocate. Sunday Jackson, by anyone's estimation, is totally innocent. And the issue where this man was out farming, minding his own business, and then the attacker came and a struggle ensued. And of course, this man is going to defend himself. That's why we call it self-defense. And yet today, we were at the Nigerian Supreme Court, and it was very brief. It was only about maybe 2 minutes long. And we just wept at the failure of the Nigerian Supreme Court to say that this man, and they had the opportunity to say this man was totally innocent. We haven't seen all the ins and outs of the decision, but we had the opportunity to meet this humble farmer, this young man who unfortunately his wife abandoned him, had been on death row for 10 years. So Sunday Jackson has now become an international case.
The case details reveal that Sunday was working on his own farm when a herdsman brought cattle to graze on his property. Findings have revealed that the knife used in the incident belonged to the herdsman, suggesting the herdsman was the initial aggressor. There appears to be a concerning pattern in similar cases where in 2018, another Adamawa High Court presided by Justice Abdulaziz Waziri sentenced 5 Christian farmers to death by hanging for allegedly killing a herdsman in a reprisal attack. These judgments raised concerns about potential religious bias in the judicial system, as judges from one religious background have sentenced defendants of another faith to death in controversial circumstances. This pattern may warrant investigation by the National Judicial Council. The situation reflects broader tensions in Nigeria's Middle Belt region. Recall the former governor, Governor El-Rufai, previously justified reprisal killings by herdsmen and provided monetary compensation to those who killed Southern Kaduna residents in what were termed reprisal attacks.
We felt that we were succeeding. We felt that we had got the transhumans out of the equation and can now focus on resolving the issues between local herdsmen and farmers, which is still an issue, okay? But yes, we offered them money. We said, look, if we have to pay you not to kill our people, we're happy to do it.
This case highlights concerns about inequitable application of laws between herdsmen and farmers in Nigeria's northeast region. Meanwhile, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria (CBCN) has warned that the country's economic situation has reached alarming levels despite recent government reforms. The bishops expressed grave concern on rising poverty, food inflation, kidnappings, and the deplorable state of correctional facilities, calling for urgent and decisive action to address this crisis. The warning came during the 2025 first plenary meeting of the CBCN, held at the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria (CSN) in Abuja. They urged the government to tackle the root causes of economic hardship and insecurity, emphasizing that millions of Nigerians were suffering under extreme conditions of poverty and fear. The bishops also raised alarms over worsening insecurity with violent attacks by Boko Haram bandits and unknown gunmen increasing across the country, adding that the kidnappings for ransom have escalated, with religious leaders among the latest targets. An altar servant identified as Tedo Demille has been arrested by security operatives for allegedly masterminding the abduction of two Catholic church priests in Numan local government area of Adamawa State. It was gathered that the altar servant who provides Sunday services to the Catholic priests while performing Mass had arranged the kidnapping of Reverend Fathers Matthew Dusami and Abraham Saman. According to reports, Locke ran out of the mail when he had gone to a location to pick up the 10 million naira ransom, but later abandoned in an escape after suspecting he could be caught after noticing the presence of security operatives. It was gathered that the suspect abandoned the ransom and ran away, leaving his motorcycle behind as evidence, while a search was conducted at his residence, leading to the discovery and rescue of the two priests who were found locked in a room. No fewer than 10 persons have been reportedly killed in renewed attacks on several communities by suspected armed herders in Katsina-Ala local government area of Benue State. The attackers were reported to have invaded the Utange Council ward proceeding to Pavi, particularly Adikpo and Umade Gerehwa, and unleashed terror on the residents. Several people were reported missing as of Sunday, while many others are said to have fled the troubled communities. Confirming the attacks on Sunday, the chairman Katsina-Ala local government area, Justin Shaku, said 11 people were killed and 7 others seriously injured. According to Shackle, several houses have been burned and foodstuffs destroyed, adding that there was no provocation but the bandits have been carrying out these killings over time. Efforts to get the state police command spokesperson Catherine Anene were not successful. Meanwhile, the state governor, Hyacinth Alia, in a recent statement issued on Sunday by his chief press secretary, Kula Teso, condemned the attacks while expressing his profound condolences to the families of the casualty and the entire community of Pave, particularly Adikpo and Imade, and reassured the people of the state that those responsible would be made to face justice. In a related development, a member of the Delta State Anti-Cult Volunteer Corps have been rounded up by the police for allegedly shooting a 19-year-old auxiliary nurse to death in the Okpanamam area of Delta State capital over the weekend. The State Police Command had in 2022 inaugurated the Anti-Cult Volunteer Corps as a part of its effort to curb crime in the state. It was gathered that on Sunday that the deceased, identified as Isioma Walian, was returning from work to Asaba when she met with her untimely death. Sources privy to the incident, who refused to be named, told journalists that one of the anti-cult officers was alighting from a vehicle when the gun accidentally shot and hit the girl. Confirming the incident on Sunday, the police public relations officer, Mr. Bright Adafe, said the anti-cult member had been arrested and was in custody while investigation is ongoing to unravel the circumstances behind the shooting. And that's the news, but you can follow up on latest events and happenings around you via social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Clearview News Desk, or via handle on X, formerly known as Twitter at Clearview Online. Many thanks for watching. I am Florence Joshua. Bye for now.